We started using technology back in 92 when we opened our first proper restaurant. Why and how and why did it? Because we felt that every time you're going to the customer, you take order pad, and then you send that to the kitchen, one copy, and then one copy is just the front, and then people are making a lot of mistakes serving drinks and things. So we felt that technology is important, so we need to introduce the technology. I didn't have online ordering. I had online ordering of my own, but it was slow. It was quite complicated in terms of paying for it and making sure everything was done. Before that, whoever was using the system or providing the service, they were quite expensive. So for people like us, paying them a big hefty fee, that means our profit was eaten away. When Flipdish came on the market, I loved it because their charges were minimalistic and their service was just as good, if not better, and their attitude was fabulous.
Welcome to this Flipdish Takeaways podcast. Today, I'm joined by Tariq Salahuddin, owner and director of Indy Spice Grill. Tariq, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for asking me to come.
Great. So where did your love of food come from? When did you get involved in the food industry?
I got involved in the food industry very first day that I came to UK, which was 1978.
Okay, a little bit before my time, but okay.
Long time ago. It's a long time ago. I may not look it, but I'm old enough, I think. Or maybe I do look it.
No.
But no, yes, I always loved food. So whether I would be getting involved with the hospitality or the restaurant or takeaway industry or not, that I never knew. But I worked as a part-time and then full-time during my studies. So that's how it started.
And did you love it straight away, or did it take time for you to kind of think, oh, maybe there's a career in this for me?
I never looked at it as if there will be a career out of it at all. That came much later, much later. And I looked and I seen that what I have found, at the time, that there is a need for a quality product, and there is a need for a good system. And if someone can do that, I didn't know that I could do it or not, but I felt that if someone could do that, then in Ireland, whether it's in Northern Ireland or in Republic of Ireland, there is a long-term market there. So that's how I started. My first restaurant was 1984.
Okay.
I was only 21 years of age.
And what was your role in that? Were you owning it?
I owned it, yes. I owned it with a couple of other partners.
Great.
That was amazing learning lessons for me, because in the first go, I had partners to, discuss with, as well as my own experience that I was looking to implement. So there was a lot of ups and downs. Had it for 2 years, and that was my biggest learning of hospitality.
Okay, what was your big takeaway from that?
At the time, I realized that I cannot take partners.
Okay.
Because it's difficult.
Yeah, of course.
Because I was very strong and I have a lot of strong opinion and I have my own dream. So I felt that discussing with a lot of things with other people, there was an obstacle. And I respect other people's opinions. I think it's important. Sometimes they can be better than what I'm thinking. And whenever that is, I always take it on, Okay. But I was young and I needed to be on my own. So after that, business was, it operated for about a year and a half, and then I sold it. And then we, went our own ways. And then immediately I opened my own place. And that was a takeaway, actually. And that was 1987.
Okay.
That was the starting of my proper involvement in the hospitality.
And big changes between those two? Like, what did you do differently the second time round?
Second time, it was my own. Instead of restaurant, it was a takeaway, because I thought, let's go for takeaway, smaller outlet, less staff, and I can maybe confine everything in a way that I would like, because I wasn't thinking of sitting in. So I was totally dedicated to takeaway, and and that time, there wasn't takeaways who were doing deliveries. You went into them, like there was a lot of Chinese takeaways, and Chinese were doing deliveries, but there wasn't any Indians. And it was in Belfast, on Lisbon Road. So completely new market. Indian restaurant or takeaway didn't do, there wasn't much of a takeaways existed at that time in Belfast. So mine should be one of the first or second one. And delivery was not as common. And also, in Northern Ireland at that time, particularly in Belfast, there was a difficult in which area you can actually go to, because there was areas that was completely out of bound for most drivers,
Yeah.
But when I started, I actually broke all those barriers. I provided service to everybody, and that made me very popular. Those who wanted to take deliveries. I even sometimes went into areas where drivers, even the Catholic drivers wouldn't even go.
Wow, okay.
Even the Protestant drivers wouldn't go, even though it was respectively their own areas. Catholic to the Catholic areas, Protestant to the they wouldn't go. But in those cases, I went in there. And amazingly, I was very well liked. I was treated well, and nobody gave me any hard time.
And in the 80s in Northern Ireland, was Indian food popular, or was it something
It was getting very popular.
Okay, yeah. So you got in at the right time.
Yes.
But there wasn't much convincing you had to do, or
there was, yes. Yeah. You had to teach people. Still, you had to teach people, what they should order. Like if people can come in and order randomly, and maybe they find that what they have actually ordered is not really the dish they wanted, and that could put them off. So I had my ethos and ways to follow things. If customer came and said to me, he said, "Look, I didn't like it. That's not what I wanted, expected." But I said, "Look, no problem. Let's get to know what your taste is, and let us make you something what you might like. And then you will become our customer again. So instead of arguing with oh no, that's what you ordered. We are not interested about compensating you or empathize with you and get the right product for you. We are always pro-customer."
Love that. And I'm sure that stood to you then over
This
time.
is going on since, I have customers since 1984.
Wow. Okay.
4-5 generation
Still coming to you.
are coming to me.
Amazing.
And recently I shared a 4-generation family's picture in my restaurant. Wow. And I wrote a little story about them, and I actually didn't recognize them. They were coming to my restaurant in 1992. That's when they started, or that's when I first opened my proper restaurant with about 130 seats. And that was 1992 in Belfast. And at the time, they were coming in. It was his father was coming in. His father and mother was coming in. They were much younger. You can imagine that's nearly 40 years ago. No, 35 years ago, So 35 years ago, his parents were much younger, and he was a grown-up boy, but maybe he was in his 20s or something, early 20s or something, and he was coming in. Now, that day, he recognized me, and he said, "Tariq, is it you?" I said, "Yeah." So I was a bit embarrassed because I couldn't place him, and then he started to talk, and then I said, "Oh, yes, I do remember you." Then we start talking, and then they said, "Look, come on over. My parents and my daughter and her husband and their children are here. So we are 4 generations in here in your restaurant today." Wow. This evening, that evening. So that was great to see. And I took a couple of pictures and put them on my social media platform. And that was very well liked. And I have quite a few customers who are coming in since 84. I have a customer who got to know me in 1982 when I first came to Belfast. And since then, they were always they always keep contact with me. When I first opened my restaurant, they came in, and ever since they are coming in to me. Their children's grown up, like his son is 41 years of age, wow. And the daughter is maybe 2 years younger than her, and they live in Canada. And every time they are going to Toronto, they stay in Dublin, Swords, and they come to use our Indy Spice Grill in there.
Love that.
Imagine that. And it's only 2 weeks ago, Jonathan and Doogie, they were in the restaurant and had a meal. I joined them, not for eating. I was chatting with them.
Wow. It really shows the importance of food and customer focus, but food in the community as well, and how it becomes an integral part of how communities are kind of focused.
Yeah. I think community is very important. When you open a place, you need to have you must make sure that the core community is in your mind, because it's not about, particularly in our restaurant, you can't just open and think that people will come and give you business and you will become a rich man or something like that. But fact of becoming rich man days are over out of hospitality. It's very tough, very challenging. But because we are in it, so we don't have any choice of leaving the industry. We'll keep it up until we can do that. And then there's a new generation coming in. But end of the day, no matter which area you open a takeaway or restaurant, because I have the experience of opening takeaway and doing well out of it, and opening restaurant and doing well out of it. So I know the both sides. Community is very important. You have to make sure that you are totally focused. And we have a ethos that everything that we do is customers' satisfaction is a vital part of our business. So when people comes back to us and calls and writes comments, we didn't like it, we had this experience. I mean, we are not perfect. In this industry, you cannot be perfect. You may have a good policy, but despite all that things, sometimes we can have a bad staff and they could spoil everything. Even though it's only one staff, that could happen. So time to time, we also face something similar things. But important thing, I always tell my staff or my team, please make sure that you deal with the customer with honesty, integrity, and put customer in the first.
Absolutely.
So people looks at it, oh yes, this guy made the mistake, I wasn't happy, but look how nicely they have dealt with the whole situation.
So when you're looking for staff for your restaurant, which is obviously incredibly important, and as you mentioned there, one bad staff member can have a very detrimental effect. What are the characteristics or the qualities that you're looking for from a staff member?
It's very difficult, very difficult, because until they start working, you cannot tell what their mindsets are. Somebody could completely hide their, bad side of it and then come and join. And nowadays, I find nowadays, like years ago, we had a lot of difficulties because various reasons. I'm not going to go into it, but various reasons, there was a lot of difficulty. But nowadays, I find that the young people who are coming in to work part-time or full-time, they're pretty intelligent. They're very intelligent people. And they are well trained from their background, the schools or colleges, that behavior is very important. So even they don't know something, they don't pretend or try to, impose on you. They say, look, I'm sorry, I don't know about it. Let me ask my manager or supervisor. So that is very good thing. So training is very important. So we train them. We train them with our heart, and we tell them the simple things. He said, look, this is not a rocket science. It's a very simple thing, very much involved with the common sense. How you would like to be treated if you go to a takeaway or a restaurant by their staff is something you need to keep in mind to do the same when you are in the other side of the table. And most people are fine,
Great. So is staff turnover a big thing for you? Do you retain staff? What would be the average kind of tenure?
Our staffs are like, I can tell you about Indy Spice Grill, and I have another restaurant in Belfast, which is going on since 92. And I have staff since 92 working for me in Belfast.
Wow. They've grown up in the restaurant.
Oh yeah, virtually. And one particular staff actually worked with me when I was working as a chef in the kitchen. So, and these people can go anywhere they want. Like, I don't say to them, like, you must stay or anything. No, there's nothing like that. I have chefs working for me 30 years plus.
Wow.
They wouldn't go. They said, no, I don't want to go. I said, I'm happy. It's not just about money. It's about relationship, you know. If they are in difficulty, if they come to me, I help them all the way.
Couldn't agree more. When did you transition from, are you still cooking at the moment?
No,
or?
I don't cook. I stopped cooking in 92.
Okay.
So that's when, but I still cook occasionally out of my own passionate reason.
Do you miss it? Do you miss the
No, I
hustle
don't
and
miss
bustle?
it. No, I don't miss it because I work in the business, you know, so I would be looking after the customers, receiving them, you know, and making sure the service end of it, that food are going to the table on time, every time, quality. There's no compromise, you know, no compromise in the quality, service. So I would be looking after all those things still. Still, I look after it. So I don't miss it. The fact that I'm there, I love the buzz. It's like a show business, you know.
Yeah, you're putting on a show each night.
Every night, you know, like a Mother's Day, Father's Day, or Valentine's Day, you know, you get influx of a lot of people. And at the reception, you know, holding conversation with them to make sure that they don't get upset because their tables are a bit delayed is a very important thing, you know.
Yeah, just looking after people.
Exactly.
The entire time.
Exactly, yes.
So obviously you've been in business a long time, longer than I've been alive. What are those kind of big changes that you've seen over those years? Have you seen the way maybe customers view food? Have you seen any of those kind of changes in that time?
Yeah, there are a lot of changes. I mean, when I started my first restaurant, it was fine dining. So we used to give them a silver service. I don't know, you're familiar with silver service?
No.
If silver service is like you bring the plates to the customer hot, wipe them in front of them, give it to them. You have a hot plate in front of them, and then you bring the rice, curries. Say if it is rice and curry you are serving. So all those things came to the table on a trolley, and then you serve the rice on the plate, you serve the curry on the plate. So somebody will be there close by. So when you needed more, they came over to you, served them. Now that was a different culture. People appreciated, people paid extra money for it, and slowly that culture has, you know, kind of like disappeared. People didn't wanted that. People didn't wanted you to serve them. They wanted you to leave everything on the table. You go away until they want you to come to them. So we changed. That restaurant lasted, I mean, that particular way of cooking lasted 10, 15 years, probably 15 years. And then we changed that into is a fine dining still there, the concept of it there, but service method become casual.
Okay.
So casual dining with fine dining food.
Sounds ideal.
Same, yeah. So we started then Indy Spice Grill. Originally it was Jarna in Belfast. And then we started the Indy Spice Grill. So Indy Spice originally started as a combination of different multi-cuisine. Originally it started as a multi-cuisine. Like we used to do Mexican food, Thai food, Irish food, and Indian food. It's an amazing combination, you know, and we had a great customer feedback. But then again, the biggest problem that we faced that time was holding on to all the different chefs. That was difficult. Then we changed into a complete Indian food. And ever since we're doing that. So our most important focus in that is, actually what happened was, I had an interview with iwoman.ie back in 2004. And she was my fan in Indy Spice Grill. So I didn't know her. She was using my restaurant and quite frequently. And she said, look, Tariq, I love your restaurant. And I want to have a interview. I want to take your interview and I want to publish that in my iwoman.ie. I said, fantastic. So I was over the moon. So we had a meeting and we spoke. And she said, you know, one thing, this is her comment, that Indy Spice Grill provides 5-star quality at a 3-star price.
Love that.
Do you know, so I said to myself, oh, that's amazing, you know, that's great. So I loved it. And I share that, you know, comment in many places. And that means that without us realizing what we were doing completely, we were doing something that people are actually noticing. That was important, that people were noticing. So that's why she said that to me. You know, and she said that when she comes to the Indy Spice Grill, she loves the detail that we implement in our everyday service for the customers. Now that is going back in 2004. Now we have changed a lot of things since, but we always thought of customers. Now what does customer likes, what they love, what they would like on the table. If you remember in those days, I don't know if you remember or not, but those days there was most of the restaurants had tablecloths.
Yep.
And sometimes tablecloths were kind of like a dirty, but people didn't change it. But I started doing away with the tablecloths. And fresh, clean surface table that gets wiped properly every time. There's no dirty tablecloths or corner dirty or anything like that. So when you were sitting there, you had the table mat and you had the table, clean table, and everything else was there, minimalistic. Because the more thing you put it on the table, of utensil-wise, that means chances of they're not being looked after or maintained properly. So I changed all those things.
It's a great idea to keep it nice and minimal, keep costs down as well, obviously, which is very, very important.
Yeah.
You mentioned kind of 5-star quality there. Is that something that obviously you've ran sit-down restaurants and you've ran takeaways? Has the quality of food been different, or does it change, or how do you kind of approach that from having a takeaway versus something like dine-in?
In my restaurant, quality of the food is same, whether you take a takeaway or you sit in the restaurant. Now, sitting in the restaurant, when you are sitting in, you are getting it straight from the cooker to your table. When you are taking as a takeaway, it's packed in a container, and then you are taking to your house. So there could be half an hour to an hour in the process that going to the house. Indian food generally don't deteriorate in terms of quality. So when you open it, it will still taste the same. Now, sometime, it will not have the same flavor exactly as you will get it in the sit-in, and you are getting it straight. So that little bit is a difference. Regards to takeaway, Indian food is type of food that you can actually have next day. So if you couldn't finish it and you have a leftover for the next day, instead of throwing it out or something and thinking that, it's no good, Indian food tastes even more better on the next day. And there are many ways you can actually eat on the next day, So I give you a story. It's like although we don't prepare it the way the story goes, but story is there. It's like if you eat zalfrezi in India, any Indian restaurant, what was zalfrezi? Where does this zalfrezi come from? So the story behind zalfrezi is when the British were in India, there's a lot of officers married to Indian princesses or Indian ladies at that time, and they lived kind of like a mixed life, You have a good of European and the good of Indian culture as well. So in their life, whenever we can, say Saturday night, what they couldn't finish in the dinner, it was left for the next day. So Sunday, they were getting up late. So what they were doing, they were having, instead of having a breakfast, they were having a brunch. So in that brunch, what they were doing is they were all the leftover for the previous day, they were mixing it together and enhancing it with a little bit more spices. And that's what they were cooking. And that was originally called zalfrezi. And that's how the chicken zalfrezi, we call it chicken, but that wasn't called chicken zalfrezi. But it was called zalfrezi, you mix together, stir fry it, and cook it, and eat it with rice or bread, whatever your personal choice is.
Love that.
But today we cook zalfrezis dedicatedly,
Yes.
Same
not
ethos.
leftovers.
No, not leftovers. Definitely not. Definitely not.
Now, if you were going to go to Indy Spice Grill, what is your dish that you have to have when you're in there if you're going to eat yourself?
If I'm eating myself, I like combination of spices and vegetables. So if I was ordering, I will order prawn chettinad. Okay,
Yep.
This is kind of South Indian dish, and it has a lot of wholesome flavors. So we combine all the herbs and we roast them and we grind them in-house. and that actually creates a spice mix that is dedicated to chettinad spice. So that creates amazing flavor. So I would order, traditionally it is eaten with chicken chettinad, but we also do prawn chettinad. I think prawn chettinad tastes even better, but it's with the tiger prawns,
Nice.
not the king prawn, but the tiger prawns. The flavor is amazing. And I love dal, lentils.
Okay.
And we cook 4 or 5 different type of lentils together, and we come up with our own lentil dish, and that's also fantastic. And we put garlic garnish on the top of it, like a sizzling garlics on the top of it. So it's amazing.
Making me hungry now.
Yeah. And then I will have some rice, and I will have some garlic bread.
So
That would
a
be
naan.
naan bread, garlic naan. So that would be my like my dinner, or say lunch even, whatever
Love that.
you want to say it. So I would order that.
You've sold me on that straight away. That sounds incredible. So talk to me about technology. Where does technology fit into your how you run your restaurant? What is an absolute piece of technology you need or you couldn't function without?
We started using technology back in '92 when we opened our first proper restaurant. Why and how and why did it? Because we felt that every time you're going to the customer, you take your order pad, so and then you send that to the kitchen, one copy, and then one copy is just the front, and then people are making a lot of mistakes serving drinks and things. So we felt that technology is important, so we need to introduce the technology. So we did that. So initially at that time, we were taking orders still in the docket, but it wasn't going to the kitchen in a docket. We were ringing it in an EPOS system. There was very early days EPOS.
I was going to say, yeah.
Very early days, and most staff didn't want to use it. So we had one dedicated staff who would take the docket from the waiting staff and registered everything in the till. And then that registration will print a copy in the kitchen, and rest of the information will stay in the till. So that was the start of getting friendly with the technology. And then slowly we have, that means no chances of mistake. So whatever you ordered from the customer, from the management point of view, nothing was missing. So you ordered the drinks, so docket went into the drink, docket went to the bar, they made the drink, but everything was staying in the kitchen, in the system. So when you wanted to pay the bill, we are not asking for who is the waiter or who is the staff served you, and then making sure that everything has been taken into account before the bill was given. It's okay if something was missing, but if there's somebody's bill docket went into somebody else's bill, then there's a problem. So once we started to use the technology, things started to get better and better. And obviously, takeaway and online orderings came much, much later. But when it came, like initially, we always did takeaway and deliveries, but without using the technology. Okay. But we had an advantage because we were using the EPOS system. So we are using phone, but we are registering into the till.
Okay, yeah.
And printing was, so we didn't, the staff who took the order didn't have to go to the kitchen. Printer was there. So that we are using. But then online ordering came. So big online ordering, so big changes. That has reduced the staff. So if you imagine, like in our takeaway service, almost 90% of our orders are now online.
Wow, okay.
So
that's great.
You are on the way home, you are placing your order, and obviously the technology companies like Flipdish has pioneered, and we loved what they were doing, without getting into heavy cost. So when they approached the market, I didn't have online ordering. I had online ordering of my own, but it was slow. And it was quite complicated in terms of paying for it and making sure everything was done. When Flipdish came to the market, before that, whoever was using the system, or providing the service, they were quite expensive. So for people like us, paying them a big hefty fee, that means our profit was eaten away. So when Flipdish came on the market, I loved it because their charges were minimalistic and their service was just as good, if not better. And their attitude towards, we are their customer, was fabulous. And we sat down and we had a discussion and we loved it.
Great.
So I think we cannot do without the technology anymore.
And when did you start that?
I think we started, I can't remember. With the outside companies like a Flipdish, I think that's going back at least 10 to 15 years maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
From the very early days of Flipdish.
And did you notice a huge spike then during times like COVID, or did that affect
COVID time, of course. Yeah. COVID time, I think it just spiraled to the top 100%,
Yeah, everything online.
Everything online, payment, everything online, I went to do a delivery and customer actually put money in a plastic bag and left it far away. And so I left my money in there. So because I couldn't get many drivers, so I was doing delivery myself as well. And I seen how people are afraid of. So I said, look, you could pay it online, instead of putting money far away. But I didn't mind. But I gave him the idea that you can pay it online, so you don't have to worry about it. We can just leave the food at your door. Unless there is a problem, you don't need to call us back.
Love that. It's great to hear, though, as well, as an owner, that you were willing to get your hands dirty, get out in the car, do some deliveries.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. No problem. This is hospitality business is, if you are not hands-on, then you cannot grow because you have to understand the problems. And you have to understand the problem from the staff point of view, team members' point of view. You have to understand the problems from the customer's point, your target customer's point of view. Takeaway delivery service, what does people want? People want quality product and speed. If you are taking too long, then people will not order to you. Doesn't matter how good you are. When you are hungry, you are hungry. It's impulse. Ordering food for takeaway and delivery is the impulse thing. You don't plan. Very few people plans. Oh yes, tomorrow is a Sunday, I'm going to have a dinner. Let's put an order 2 years before. Nobody does. Very few. So when it's impulse order, what do you want? You want it within half an hour. You want McDonald's service, but not McDonald's food. But how do you provide that? It's very difficult. It's not easy. So we provide quality food for the takeaway and deliveries, exactly the same as what you're going to get in the restaurant. But it does take a little bit longer. For our restaurant, it does take a bit longer than maybe some other places where they can do very fast, flash cooking, Flash cooking, you put it on the wok, boom, 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 very high heat. But then high heat will give you different texture food, But our food involved with a lot of flavors. So it requires a certain amount of slow cooking for the flavor to go into the product itself, whether it's a chicken, lamb, or prawn, or whatever, vegetables. So it's a different stages of cooking.
Wow. Okay. You're getting me hungry again here now. I'm really
well, you know where we are. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to go back and give your younger self, so that just before you set up your first restaurant, if you were to go back and give that person some advice that you've learned over the last 30 odd years, what is the piece of advice that you're kind of going to impart on younger you?
That's a very difficult question. I never thought about it, but I think the simple things are today, technology is there. So there's a lot of things that you want to do. You don't have to go to people, find out exactly what needs to be done. You can press of a button. You can get a lot of information online. Particularly, say, like staff-wise, you can use the technology that will reduce your staff because getting good staff is very difficult. A lot of people don't want to work in the hospitality because of the hours and a lot of other conditions. But those who are in it still quite big. When we don't have any problem getting staff. We're always able to get. So I would say that I can give an example.
Okay.
Okay. I have a 17-year-old son. 6 years ago, or about 4 to 5 years ago, he was asking me, he said to me, Dad, would I inherit Indy Spice Grill?
Good question.
Good question, you know. So I looked at him. I said, okay, Tabib, what would you do if you did get Indy Spice Grill? What would you do with it? Because this is not an easy job. It is not an easy business, you know. In the market, people say that this is the hardest industry of all. What would you do? And he was only 12 or 13, I think, at the time, you know. And he said to me, after walking around the restaurant, that's in the restaurant, you know, he came back to me, he said, Dad, I want to make it a global.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that was 4 or 5 years ago. Now, you know, after COVID and while the COVID was going towards the tail end of the COVID, when we were hoping that when the restaurants are open, things will improve. Maybe it will improve in a better way. But it didn't actually improve the way we anticipated, you know. So my son was hearing me over the phone in the house from the early morning that I'm talking to different people about this problem, that problem, business down, you know, cost of products are going up, and how do we manage everything, you know. So one day he was listening to all that, and he was like half lying on the couch, and I'm on the dining table doing my paperwork. I asked him, Tabib, remember a few years ago you asked me you wanted to whether you will inherit Indy Spice Grill or not, and you said you want to make it global. So tell me, what do you think now that you are 16 years old? And this is only last year I'm talking about when I asked him. So he said to me, he said, Dad, sounds like whenever you are talking to different people that there's a lot of hard work, but very little reward. So my suggestion to young generation who wants to come into the industry, they need to have a good think over. Unless they love some elements of this industry, and if they think it is a money-making game, then they will make a mistake.
Yeah.
But if they love it, then there's a lot of rewards. And when I say a lot of rewards, there are a lot of rewards. It's a fantastic way of mixing with people. It is a show game. It's a show business. Yeah. You can make it work like that. It's a lot of fun. You love your food, then you will enjoy it. You can create a lot of things, and you can get to the customers, and you can see how people react with your food. Today you can go for Michelin star, you can go for many different awards, and can create yourself in such a way, even if you didn't want it to go into big awards, people are your biggest fan. If customers or your end customer loves you, then it doesn't matter how many awards you have or you don't have. You
Agreed.
know, they will come back. The most important thing the young generation will need to think is that this is a hard-working industry. If you're not prepared to work hard, hands-on, then I think it will be difficult for you.
Agreed. And what would be your biggest challenge in the industry right now? What do you think is just really the outlier that makes things difficult to run a restaurant?
Cost of product.
Okay.
You know, overall cost of doing business has gone up substantially, and you cannot charge people accordingly.
So you have to take that hit yourself?
You have to take that hit. If I had made 10% net profit, I hardly would make 4% net profit now. So, I mean, you know, for myself, you know, so you can just imagine then how much it's gone down.
Wow.
You know, so unless you are already in the industry, it's very difficult. And I mean, a proof is that you can see, like I discussed this with many different restaurant owners and staff members as well, that it's not easy, it's hard. And they can all see it. And most of the people agrees, except for a few people in the industry who are luckily doing great business due to their location and due to their product and due to their connection with the customer base, you know, so they can do big business. But otherwise, you know, we are in the industry for last 40 years, but 40 plus years. But the challenge is that cost of doing business has gone up substantially.
And do we see that in relation to global events? Like, do you see that when, the war in either Iran obviously is broken out now, which is going to cost fuel, Ukraine as well, the breadbasket of the world. So all of those things having impacts on.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Like when Ukraine war started, within the following few months, the 20-liter drum of oil that we are paying 20 euro, okay, suddenly that went up 48 euro.
Wow, that's a huge increase.
20 kilo rice, that was only 27 euro, suddenly went up to 52 euro. Imagine, that's 100%, some cases 100 and 200% jump.
That's insane. How do you manage
you
that?
You can't manage it. You have to put the price up. But you know yourself, people are price sensitive because your salary is not going up.
Yeah.
So how are you going to manage it? What I have noticed those days that a lot of people stop eating as many times, so we were very sensitive because we cannot just be seen charging too much. So we had to increase prices accordingly, but not in a way that we put our customers off.
Yeah.
So we are managing it in a different way to make sure that we survive. We knew that. And then, utility bill went up. An unit of electricity was 14 cents before Ukraine war. Within the few months of Ukraine war, that unit went up to 68 cents.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine, from 14 cents to 68 cents.
Yeah.
So if your electricity bill a month was 2,000 euro, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a huge increase.
Just multiply 14 to how many times it goes into 68.
I think you need to show your son some of these numbers before.
Oh, definitely, definitely. It's not that, this industry is very volatile now. It is a volatile. Takeaway industry has grown because of the restaurant industry's uncertain expenses. That's a good thing about Flipdish. Flipdish came in the market in a good time, and takeaway industries is growing because you don't need to charge as much because your cost of doing business is less. You don't have a lot of waiting staff or front of the house staff. All you need is a couple of staff at the front and 3-4 staff. So 5-6 people can run a good takeaway, busy takeaway, or weekdays are not as busy, so you can reduce the staff accordingly. Whereas in the restaurant, you have a lot of expenses, your gas expenses, your electricity, heating expenses, your water bills, so cost of doing business goes up. So takeaway industry in that way is still, good. You don't have to charge and you can get people back. And this is why our takeaway businesses are growing big time.
Okay, yeah. And where do you see for you the next 5 years? What does that look like for you? What's success look like in 5 years' time?
I don't know, because the more problems are happening now, and how that will affect our industry, I quite don't know. It all depends on how interest rates goes up, cost of fuel goes up. All those things will play a big part.
So maybe just being in business in 5 years' time would be a massive success?
Oh, I think so. If you can survive and hold up to next 5 years, I would say that you will be doing well, and that would be your profit.
Yeah.
Surviving is your profit.
Yeah, it is an interesting and a worrying time. And I think that's something, before I got into the food industry myself, I always thought it was, every owner is driving a Ferrari, all this kind of stuff. And then you start to realize that the amount of work towards the amount of profit you make from that is far from it. And actually people are there because they love what they do. And that's what
I think, if you have been involved in the food business, it's not just the money. If it was the money, then I'll be gone long time ago. But I think it's a love of what you do is the biggest passion. And for me, that's what I'm in it for. I love this industry. I love talking to people. I love making sure that customers get the best. And if you come to Indy Spice Grill's kitchen, our kitchen is actually open, completely open.
You just look in?
Everything that is happening. It's like a theater.
Love that.
You can see everything is going in, from chopping to prepare to wash to cook, tandoori ovens, grills, everything is in front of you. So you can actually see. And this is the one thing that our customer loves. They say two things. Said, I love watching the way my food is being prepared. And second, there is no hidden agenda there. Everything is prepared the way it should be and in front of our eyes.
Love that. Where is your favorite restaurant not owned by you in the country? What is your go-to if you're not eating at one of your own restaurants? Where are you going to eat?
Well, I mean, in Ireland or outside Ireland?
No, in Ireland.
Very difficult question. Yeah, I love
non-Indian food. So outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Thai food.
Okay.
I love Chinese food as well. I love pizza. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I want, my wife loves Thai food and Chinese food a bit, but Thai influenced Chinese food. So we would go to in the city center. You know what? I love Japanese food.
Okay.
And between three of us, we would always go to Wagamama.
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because fast, because we love everything to come quickly.
Yeah.
And we know that this particular type of food cuisine they are producing things very fast and very high quality. So we would love Wagamama. Okay. Then there is a Chinese restaurant we would go, Mama Yo.
Yeah, great place. Yeah.
In Camden Street. Yeah. So we would go there occasionally. So
what do you like about it? What is?
I love whoever done the architect. I love that. I love the decor because I'm into it. So the interior designing would be one of my part of doing restaurant business. So I would put a lot of my own thoughts and inputs into it with the designer to come up with something new or something that people will love and also staff friendly in terms of work. So I love that, and they have a beautiful restaurant design. So I love that. So that's a very good thing. And they also have an open kitchen. You can see not as much, but you can still see some. Great food.
Okay, great. So there, Wagamama's and Mama Yo are your fantastic. Another question, because quick fire question, is someone you've met over your years working within the hospitality industry who had a great impact on you and you think would be a great guest on our podcast.
So, sorry, say that again?
So anyone you've met in the hospitality world over your time that you think has had a good impact on you, but also would be a great guest on the podcast.
Well, Michael Dean. Dean's in Belfast. He's a Michelin star chef. Well, he's my customer in Belfast. Him and his family, they will come. They've been coming to my restaurant over the years, and they love coming there. And I love the way he does everything. He has a very good ethics, and I see that he's kind of dominating the Belfast eatery market. Coming up with new ideas. Not all that works 100% the way he would like to, but I think at least he is coming up with ideas that we are looking at it and we say, yes, I love that. So I love that, and I think it will be good to get his ideas and thoughts of today, because he's been in the market, in the industry for a long time. I knew Paul Rankin.
Okay.
Yeah. I met him, and he came to my restaurant a few times as well. Whenever he had his many restaurants in Belfast, he started there. And so I don't know where he is, but he would be another guy I love. And I would say today I would love to hear from him. I don't know whether he's still in the industry or not. And then you have several guys, Michelin star guys in the Republic of Ireland, in Dublin. So I would say that it will be good to know their thoughts. So even though they are in fine dining and upmarket restaurants, things, I think that will be important, because today we can combine it. We can combine the upmarket business, upmarket section of it, and combine it with the casual dining and mix it, and bring the cost down.
Absolutely.
So that people can have fine dining element with a casual dining atmosphere, which I am specializing, My restaurant would be fine dining cooking, but not fine dining price.
Yeah.
And it's a casual environment. So you don't have to wear your suits anymore.
Love that. Sounds right up my street. Okay, and one of my final questions for you then is death row meal. Last meal you're ever going to eat. Starter, main, dessert. What are you having? Anything on the planet. What food? It's a big question.
It's a big question. I love jumbo prawn.
Okay.
So I would love jumbo prawn as a starter.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prepared, marinated in a charcoal oven with all the smoky flavors coming out of it. As soon as ready, they just take it off the skewer on the plate, sprinkle of herbs and some coriander, and bring it to me. So that I would have as a starter.
Amazing. Okay.
Now, for main course, I always like chettinad, but one of the other dishes that I love is a karahi. Okay. Karahi gosht is a kind of like Afghanistani dish. You don't hear that. You think karahi gosht is a Pakistani, Afghanistan. It's not Pakistani. It's a mountain Afghanistani dish. Pashtun people eats quite a lot. So this particular dish, I have seen how they do it back home. And it's a raw meat, not much spices, salt and little herbs of like cumins put onto the wok, hot wok, and they're cooking it slowly in it, And the flavor and aroma that comes out of it when it's prepared is just amazing. I would love that as my main course.
Stunning. Okay. And
amazing.
Your dessert?
Dessert. Now, I'm very simple. I love all sorts of desserts. But to cool me down, I would love mango kulfi.
Talk me through that.
It's a kind of Indian ice cream. It's you boil the milk and then you reduce it and then you put mango pulp in it or fresh mango in it and then you cook it together and then you cool it down and you put through the sieves to take the hard elements of it off and then you make it as an ice cream, and that is amazing. That's not your typical like a ice cream that you buy from the supermarket or anything. This is a homemade mango kulfi. Now, traditionally, pistachio kulfi would be the one is very popular, but I prefer the mango kulfi, and we make it in our restaurant.
Wow, spoken like a true chef as well. That was an excellent. So you're making this in the restaurant for?
We make it in the restaurant with the real ingredients, and our customers who are into these things, I love it.
I love that.
And it's about selling, like working as a waiter is not a waiter. You are actually salesman. And I always tell that to my staff. I said, you're not waiting for customers. Yeah. You are selling the product that you from this outlet. So how you explain that to your customer is what they are going to take, order.
And they have to really understand the dishes then as well, right?
Yes, you have to explain to them in a way so they can understand that, yes, I love that. Sound of it, I love it. But then you try, and then you try. Occasionally, they don't like it. It's not possible that every time you would love everything.
Yeah.
But in those cases, we always change it. If customers ask us to do something about it, we straight away. Even sometimes they don't have to. Oh, sorry, I didn't like it. And I can see that. We always attend customer in such a way that while they're eating, we could see that they don't like it. So if anything like that happens, our staff, our team will go to them and say, look, is there something wrong? And do you want me to change it? Do you want me to do something about it? If they say yes, or they say, no, I'm just taking my time, then that's okay. And then we leave them alone. But if they say, no, I'm finding it difficult. What I thought this is, and it's not the same. So I said, look, let's do something about it. So change it. And then they go home without thinking twice that whether they will come back to this restaurant or not. Similarly with the takeaway, sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes customers make mistake. Maybe they ordered some curry, they forgot to order rice. And I in one incident that happened to me long time ago, we didn't do delivery service. Customer ordered on the way from her work. She's ordered about several dishes, and she thought rice comes automatically, so she didn't think of rice, and but she didn't order the rice. So she came to collect the food as it was ready when she came in, and she lives about 10 kilometers away from our restaurant. But she was going home on the way from her work. So she collected the food, she went home. As soon as she went home, arrived home, she let the babysitter go. So then she left with kids and the food, no rice.
Oh, disaster.
So she phoned us. She said, look, I ordered this and collected it. And I said, look, you didn't order any rice. So we didn't charge you for it. So she said, oh, okay, I understand, but how am I going to eat the rice, curries without the rice? And you know what? I said, look, if you want to come down and we can give you the rice, no problem. He said, look, I can't come because there's no babysitter. I let her go. I said, look, where do you live? Let's see what we can do. So it was, I think, Gormanstown, and we are in Swords. So Gormanstown is quite a bit away. I said to her, because of her situation, she has kids to feed, and then our curry, and there's no rice. So I said, look, leave it with me. I will get something organized. So I called the taxi because I couldn't go because I was busy in the restaurant. So I called the taxi. Taxi costed me in those days €50. Because that's what he charged me, because he would be coming back from there empty-handed. So that's why they charged me. But I didn't charge customer even for the rice either. The reason I did it because it was a genuine mistake, and I didn't want her to pay her money to us for the rice at that time because it was a genuine mistake. So that customer still comes to our restaurant. That's 20 years ago.
They'll never forget, because they'll never get service like that in almost anywhere else.
No,
right?
People will not do that. Most people will not do that. Some people, of course, I'm sure they do that because they value their business in a different way. I mean, our ethos is that we are not there. We are not here on the market for 1 day or 1 month or 1 year. We are already in the market 42 years. So whether my son takes over or not, I have a good team who will want to take over and continue the legacy of Indy Spice Grill many, many years to come. Hopefully, God willing.
Yep, exactly.
God willing.
And that really comes down to that idea of lifetime value of a customer that I think people who've just come into business, they might not have that view, but obviously 40 years in business, you realize that lifetime value really does come back to look after you later on.
Yes, it's very important. You don't think it. When you start, you think somebody came to your door to buy something, they may not come back, but you will be surprised that very person who may come back to you even 20 years time, look for the same outlet. You may not be there, but if the ethos and the values are all in place and continues accordingly, like if you think about McDonald's, they are still in business.
Oh yeah.
Isn't it? Why? Whether you like their food or you don't like their food, like I like McDonald's. I can say that very happily.
Once in a while, it's good.
Yeah. I used to eat a lot of McDonald's because I was busy in my life. When I worked in Germany, the only convenient food I could have was McDonald's. Now, you have to look into their system. You need to look into how they do everything. There's a lot of things you can learn. You can modify that to your business that you have and make it work. But all the ideas are all there. All the values are all there. All the system are all there. So you don't have to go too far.
Absolutely.
So any of those successful industry that are in the market long time are actually providing a lot of intelligent stuff for anybody who wants to go into the hospitality industry.
Yeah, they're great examples of what to do, right?
Yes.
They've survived all that time.
Yeah.
Okay, my final question for you is then locations. Where can people find you? How can people get your food? Tell us where you're based.
Well, you can find us online, you know, www.indysspicegrill.ie, or you can Google Indy Spice Grill and it will take you there. And everything is online now. Technology helps you to find our very door.
Great.
And
you're based in Swords, right?
We are based in Swords. You know, we have 2 outlets. One is a state-of-the-art restaurant, which is renovated just over a year and a half ago, and it holds 200 seats, 5,500 square feet restaurant. And we also have a dedicated takeaway delivery service in Swords, North Street Industrial Estate, which is North Street Business Park, to be exact. And that is also there since 2008.
Wow.
And we are in Swords as a restaurant since 2004.
Incredible. Standing the test of time.
Yeah. So you can find them. Like nowadays, you don't have to look at the map from a book.
Absolutely.
All is in front of, in your palm, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your insights with a very vast amount of experience in this industry. So thank you so much. Best of luck in the next 5 years.
Well, thank you.